Hi, I'm Charles Purcell, and this is the log for Monday, July 27th. 99 days to Election Day. 99 days to Election Day, 99 days to vote. Make sure to get your ballot by mail and make sure you vote. All right, anyway, 99 days. All right, well, coming to you from River West, the greatest neighborhood in the world, right here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And, well, we made national news this weekend, our little sleepy neighborhood of River West, because of the sad story you may have heard. Now, I did not know this guy. A lot of people in the neighborhood knew him. Burnell Trammell. You may have seen the story. He was shot. He was killed, sadly. And he was well known in the neighborhood. Reading from the original story here, tributes continue to pour in for a man killed in Milwaukee's River West neighborhood. Family and friends identified 60-year-old Burnell Trammell as the man shot and killed Thursday, July 23rd, near Wright and Bremen. Flowers and artwork now cover the scene, which is right outside the business Trammell owned, Expressions Journal Publications, which, by the way, I lived right next door to for a couple of years before I moved to my present locale. So here's the deal if you need to know. Many of you know this already. He was kind of a character. He was very outspoken on his religious and political views. And he was kind of all over the map. He was a Trump supporter. He was also a Lena Taylor supporter, a progressive, a liberal who ran for mayor here in Milwaukee, and a very vocal Black Lives Matter supporter. The bottom line is, everybody pretty much liked him. Anybody who spoke with him said the same thing, that he was a very friendly guy, a very engaging guy. But his support for Trump and the big signs he had in his window, and he would carry them around, and he would talk with anybody who would listen. And as you can guess, there's not much support for Trump here in River West, but nobody really held that against him. So here's the reason this is becoming a big national story. A bunch of pigs in the right-wing press have decided that the angle needs to be prominent black Trump supporter murdered in Milwaukee. Now, it's really disturbing. It's really disturbing that they would so cynically and heinously exploit a terrible murder for their own political gain. I mean, you really can't get much lower than that. Well, I posted the story I was just reading to you because it was a good story. It was from the CBS affiliate here in Milwaukee, Channel 58. But it talks about how the neighborhood saw him. Nice quotes. We're all sad. We're all shocked. Yeah, he was a character. Everybody seemed to like him. He talked to anybody, and everybody left, feeling good. So that's the story I shared with this warning. You may see the ugly, quote-unquote, Trump supporter propaganda piece exploiting the victim and being pushed nationally, because right away this was out there everywhere. If you went online, every right-wing media outlet in the country was pushing this little angle. So my warning was, don't believe it. This is my neighborhood. We were all cool with the guy. We're all shocked by the shooting, and we mourn for him. And then I shared this nice little story, warning people off of the propaganda. Well, to my dismay, one of my social media friends, who I can't quite figure her out, I don't know, if you're listening, maybe you can try to explain this to me. She's one of these libertarian types, mostly kind of conservative, but she'll surprise you and be socially liberal. She's one of those. She's kind of a free thinker. She's right half the time. She's wrong half the time. She doesn't seem to think too clearly. All right, so my social media friend has to comment on my post. She says, "Another senseless death. Where's the outrage on this one?" All right, so I know that, okay, this doesn't smell right. This doesn't smell right. And then, to my great dismay, she shares the right-wing version of the story, the exploitation story. Headline, Prominent Black Trump Supporter Murdered in Milwaukee. And see, this is the way they do it. Basically, they've got their facts right, but the way they portray it is completely self-serving and exploits this guy's life and death. And my friend kind of unwittingly, or wittingly, I'm not sure, shares this. And it's really disturbing. Her comment, as she shares this, her post says, George Floyd death was outrageous. And, all capitals, so is this one. Where's the outrage? Yeah, I thought that's what she was getting to on her comment on my post. She's equating the George Floyd death with this one. She's playing this both sides game. The right-wingers are cynically using this story to say, see, they're just as bad, to somehow negate the entire Black Lives Matter movement. Well, yeah, George Floyd died. That was terrible. Well, this guy died too, and that was also terrible. So, it's all just the same. Both sides are doing it. Let me read. Okay, now, warning, okay? Will you please listen to my warning here before I read this? This is the exploitative version of the story going around. A black Trump supporter who was well known in his community for standing on street corners with Vote Trump signs, as well as signs plastered with Bible verses, was killed in broad daylight in Milwaukee's River West neighborhood Thursday afternoon. Burnell Tremmel, there's some dispute on how he spelled his name. On some sites it's Tremmel with an E, on others it's Trammel with an A. I'm pretty sure that Trammel with an A is correct. They say Tremmel in this story. Burnell Tremmel, 60, was shot in front of his business, Expression Publications at 911 East Wright. The building is covered in handmade signs, the most prominent of which read, Vote Donald Trump 2020 and Re-elect Trump 2020. Law enforcement sources tell the Dan O'Donnell Show, and that's what this is coming from, conservative radio host, that it is impossible to know the motive for the shooting since the suspect is not yet in custody. But detectives are investigating the possibility that Tremmel was killed over his political beliefs. So, you see what they're doing here? Some say, well, there's a possibility. Well, of course, there are all sorts of possibilities for everything. And if he was killed for that reason, that's terrible. But so far, there's no evidence. And even if he was, and I'm not excusing this for a second, but if he was, it's certainly not at all comparable or analogous to George Floyd, where George Floyd is one of dozens and dozens and dozens of victims of systemic racism and violence, as opposed to this very sad, very tragic, yet isolated story. And nowhere in this little Dan O'Donnell Show story does it say that he was also a very vocal supporter of Senator Lena Taylor, progressive, or that he was a very vocal supporter of Black Lives Matter. Nope. They don't feel that's important to note at all. There's another story. There are a couple stories going around. One of them talks about how he was shot just hours after giving a television interview about his support for Trump. And that was just an outright lie. And then I checked out a couple other versions of the story because it's all over the place. And they kind of got the facts right, but they're very selective about how they say it. And they're downright dishonest in their portrayal. What did happen was Trammell was interviewed on video a couple of hours before he was shot. But the guy who did the interview took the tape home and hadn't even edited it yet. It didn't appear anywhere. It wasn't a live stream. So unless you're accusing the one guy who interviewed him, I mean, you can see what they're doing there, right? That's just a lie. There's no other way to say it. Implying that because he was interviewed on television, which he wasn't, that was the reason then he was shot, because he's a Trump supporter. Somebody saw it, and so the implication there is clear, what they're trying to say. So this is just tragic in every way. Again, I didn't know the guy, but I did live right next door to him for a couple of years. So I'm sorry I didn't know him. I should have. But I felt at least enough connection that, I went down there. It's just a few blocks from where I live now. So I went down just to pay my respects. There was going to be some sort of a memorial service at noon, and I got there. I did a little shopping at the River West Co-op. Got there a little before noon. I was the first one there. I didn't really plan on staying. I wasn't sure. I was going to see how it worked out. Mainly, I just wanted to have my own little private moment. Just wanted to pay my respects. And then, as the noon approached, a few people came, and it was more press than neighbors. And so I just decided this was a private moment for me. I wanted to pay my private respects. I decided to take off. I had groceries melting in the hot sun in my car. And mostly, I really didn't want to be interviewed because the press outnumbered the rest of us. And I didn't want to take part in that. I just wasn't, I didn't feel right about being part of the show. I thought, well, I've got the podcast tomorrow. I'll give my 2 cents on the podcast. So I took off. But the latest I know, at least as of yesterday, police had no details about any potential suspects. They don't really know any motives behind the shooting. They don't know. Let's see. I'm reading now from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. In a statement, Milwaukee Police Department officials said the homicide was still under investigation. The motive is still under determination, as MPD is still seeking a suspect. Now, at the site, at the little memorial yesterday, was Vaughn Mays, a name you may recognize, community organizer, local activist. Milwaukee community organizer Vaughn Mays, who has been actively involved in the recent Milwaukee protests against racism and police brutality, has also voiced concern about Trammell's death. Mays' organization, Community Task Force Milwaukee, will call on legislators to classify politically motivated violence as a hate crime, he said. But Mays discouraged people from making Trammell's killing a political issue before the facts of the case are known. Quote, using anyone's death to politicize or to cause division or to discredit the movement will not be tolerated, Mays said. Calling Trammell a community elder and beloved figure, Mays organized a vigil for him outside the Expression's office on the corner of Bremen and Wright Streets on Sunday. That's the one I've been talking about. About a dozen people turned out in the 90-degree heat. So, good for Vaughn Mays. That's exactly the right sentiment. Using anyone's death to politicize or to cause division or to discredit the movement will not be tolerated. Absolutely. And that's what the right-wingers are doing. And it's shameful. It really is shameful. And I'm really sorry that my social media friend decided to go with that angle. Yeah. So there you go. River West in the news this weekend. And I guess I should just close this little section by saying our condolences and best wishes to the friends and family of Burnell Trammell. Yeah, just a sad story on a couple different fronts there. All right. What else is going on here? On the lighter side of the news, this made me chuckle. Trump says he won't throw out first pitch at Yankees game. He was a few days ago bragging about how the Yankees had asked him to throw out the first pitch. But he tweeted yesterday, because oh, Lord. Because of my strong focus on the China virus, oh, Lord help me, including scheduled meetings on vaccines, our economy, and much else, I won't be able to be in New York to throw out the opening pitch for the Yankees on August 15th. We will make it later in the season, exclamation point. Yeah, on Thursday he had announced, I think also by tweet, that he was going to be throwing out the first pitch. Oh no, I guess he did that at maybe one of his pressers at his dog and pony show, his virus dog and pony show. Anyway, so yeah, August 15th was the date. So everybody mark your calendar. I'm going to mark my calendar just to see what he's doing on August 15th. Be very curious to see what he's doing on August 15th. Let's see. I'm looking at the calendar right quick here. That's that's a Saturday. That's a Saturday. Gee, I wonder what he'll be doing. I can't imagine. Just can't imagine. Of course, this weekend he was golfing with Brett Favre. So for all you Brett Favre fans out there, how do you feel about that? Yeah, two hurricanes, and the virus raging at a record pace, and he's out golfing with Brett Favre. Okay. And it's one of those pictures where he's giving the thumbs up. Somebody tell him that nobody does that anymore. That little Fonzie thumbs up. Hey! What a dope. But no, he's going to be too busy. 3 weeks from now. Can't go to New York. And of course, the reason he doesn't want to go to New York, we all know that, is because there's going to be people kneeling. There are going to be athletes kneeling for the national anthem. And he just can't be there. Because he lost that fight. So he just can't be in the same room where that happens. So that's the little excuse he made. Oh, I'm going to be too busy presidenting. Yeah. So, yeah, let's all mark our calendar for August 15th and make special note of what he's doing on that day. Because this weekend he was golfing with Brett Favre. I wonder if he was wearing his copper fit. Yeah. Brett Dick Pick Favre. He was fun to watch. I'll give him that. He was the most entertaining football player in my lifetime. But that's where it ends. Yeah, suck it, Brett. Or last weekend he was golfing as well. I didn't mention this. I had it in my notes. Last weekend were his, 276th and 277th visits to one of his golf clubs during his presidency. So I guess this weekend was 278. And over that weekend, last weekend, we hit all-time highs for new cases. Yeah, so that's what he does. Something else I didn't mention, I had it in my notes for Friday. Last week, we hit some milestones. 15 million cases worldwide. We crossed the 15 million threshold. We crossed the 4 million deaths worldwide. And we had 1,000 deaths per day in the U.S. for, I know it was at least 3 consecutive days. It might have been 4 or 4 out of the 5 weekdays. Anyway, yeah, 1,000 deaths. We're sitting in that range. Someone pointed out also the pace of this thing. Patient 0 in Seattle was on January 20th. And we reached the 1 million mark in cases about 3 months later on April 28th. So it took 3 months to top 1 million. The next 1 million took us 2 months. So now we're up to 2 million cases. The next million took 1 month from approximately June 8th to July 8th. And then we topped the 4 million mark Wednesday of last week. So from 3 million to 4 million took about 2 weeks. So there's the accelerating pace of this. It took 3 months to get 1 million cases, 2 months for the next million, 1 month for the next million, and 2 weeks for the next million. Here, let's check real quick. Where do we stand today? Latest numbers I'm looking at, 4,371,992 cases. Deaths, 149,852. So there's another milestone. We'll hit, what, tomorrow? Tomorrow we'll hit 150,000 deaths. Lord Jesus. Shut it down. Start over. Do it right. an open letter to America's decision makers on behalf of health professionals across the country. Dear decision makers, hit the reset button. Of all the nations in the world, we've had the most deaths from COVID-19. At the same time, we are in the midst of reopening our economy, quote unquote, exposing more and more people to coronavirus and watching numbers of cases and deaths skyrocket. In March, people went home and stayed there for weeks to keep themselves and their neighbors safe. You didn't use the time to set us up to defeat the virus. And then you started to reopen anyway, and too quickly. Right now, we are on a path to lose more than 200,000 American lives by November 1st. Yet in many states, people can drink in bars, get a haircut, eat inside a restaurant, get a tattoo, get a massage, and do myriad other normal, pleasant, but non-essential activities. Get our priorities straight. More than 117,000 Americans had died of COVID-19 by mid-June. If our response had been as effective as Germany's, estimates show that we would have had only 36,000 COVID-19 deaths in that period in the United States. If our response had been as effective as South Korea, Australia, or Singapore's, fewer than 2,000 Americans would have died. We could have prevented 99% of those COVID-19 deaths, but we didn't. The best thing for the nation is not to reopen as quickly as possible. It's to save as many lives as possible, and reopening before suppressing the virus isn't going to help the economy. Economists have gone on record saying that the only way to restore the economy is to address the pandemic itself, pointing out that until we find a way to boost testing and develop and distribute a vaccine, open or not, people will not be in the mood to participate. Listen to the experts. Public health professionals have made clear that even after we've contained the virus by staying at home, in order to reopen American cities and towns safely, we will need enough daily testing capacity to test everyone with flu-like symptoms, plus anyone they have been in close contact with over the last 2 weeks. At least 10 additional tests per symptomatic person. We currently have only 35% of the testing capacity we need to meet that threshold. The more people get sick, the more testing is required. We will need a workforce of contact tracers large enough to trace all current cases. That's 210,000 more contact tracers than we had in April. But the number keeps going up as infections rise. Most states are far short of the number of contact tracers they need. In addition, we need more personal protective equipment, PPE, to keep essential workers like health professionals, emergency responders, and grocery store clerks safe. Shut it down now and start over. Non-essential businesses should be closed. Restaurant service should be limited to takeout. People should stay home, going out only to get food and medicine or to exercise and get fresh air. Masks should be mandatory in all situations, indoors and outdoors, where we interact with others. We need that protocol in place until case numbers recede to a level at which we have the capacity to effectively test and trace. Then, and only then, we can try a little more opening, one small step at a time. You should bar non-essential interstate travel. When people travel freely between states, the good numbers in one state can go bad quickly. If you don't take these actions, the consequences will be measured in widespread suffering and death. We need to lead. Tell the American people the truth about the virus, even when it's hard. Take bold action to save lives, even when it means shutting down again. Unleash the resources needed to contain the virus, massively ramping up testing, building the necessary infrastructure for effective contact tracing, and providing a safety net for those who need it. Many of the actions of our government thus far have fallen short of what the moment demands. Mr. Trump, federal administration, honorable governors, we remind you that history has its eyes on you. Sincerely, Matthew Wellington, Public Health Campaigns Director, U.S. PIRG. I always forget what PIRG stands for. I have to look it up. Federation of State Public Interest Research Groups. Other signatories here, Vice Provost of Global Initiatives, physicians from Johns Hopkins, Harvard Public Health, University of Arizona, University of Washington, Rutgers, all prominent health professionals. And the list of signatures just goes on and on and on. Yes, that's it. We've been shouting this for months now. Do it right. It's way too late to have done it right. We blew it. But it's never, ever too late to start now. It's never too late to do the right thing. But then again, there's the cows have left the barn picture. So maybe that's our situation. Maybe I have to be honest about this. Maybe I have to be less optimistic. Because that gate that swung open, and we watched our opportunity stampede away, was that gate opened by Donald himself when he refused to act responsibly. Created this whole idea that mask wearing was politically correct, and it had something to do with freedom, and it was all just a hoax and all of that. It created this stampede of stupidity that might be just impossible to overcome. According to Forbes, nearly a third of Americans believe COVID-19 death toll conspiracy theory. A growing number of Americans are buying into a narrative pushed by conservative media and disputed by health experts that suggests the official death count from the coronavirus is inflated, an Axios Ipsos poll found. 31% of Americans believe that the COVID-19 death toll is less than officially reported. The idea that the official coronavirus death toll has been inflated has been pushed most heavily by conservative media, which argue that Democrats are inflating the number to weaponize the death count against, and Axios reported in May that and some of his aides also believe the theory. So it may be too late. I keep saying it's never too late to do the right thing. Maybe I'm wrong. It's hard to say that out loud. Not the I'm wrong part. I'm wrong about lots of things. What's hard to admit is that it's actually too late to do something. Can that be possible? God, let's hope not. Let's hope not. All right, let's keep a good thought. Mercy, Lord Jesus, come on, you guys. All right, 99 days. 99 days to Election Day. 99 days till we vote. We'll get in the car. We'll go to the polls. We'll do our duty and vote in the election. 99 days. Here we go. I'm Charles Purcell. This is The Log. Talk to you tomorrow.